My name is Daniel. I'm 41 years old, and for most of my adult life, I've worked as a technician in the global power grid sector. My job was demanding but practical: long hours maintaining electrical substations, traveling between regions, and making sure that homes, hospitals, and cities had the energy they needed. It wasn't glamorous, but it gave me a sense of purpose. I knew that when people flipped a switch, there was light because someone like me kept the systems alive. At home, life was simple. I'm a husband and a father of two children, a boy of 12 and a girl of 8. My wife, Anna, is a patient and strong woman, and she always worried about the dangers of my work. High voltage isn't a game, she used to remind me, and I would brush it off with a smile. Truthfully, I carried her words with me every time I put on the heavy gloves and helmet. I knew accidents could happen in a second. The morning of the incident felt ordinary. I had coffee in my usual mug, kissed my children goodbye as they went off to school, and told Anna I'd be late because we were working on an emergency repair at one of the regional substations. The weather was unstable, storm clouds rolling in, winds picking up. But outages had been reported, and I was part of the team assigned to fix it before the city went dark. I remember the climb up the steel structure, the smell of rain in the air, and the vibration of the cables humming with power. My colleague shouted something about checking the transformer connections, and I leaned in closer, tools in hand. That's when it happened. A surge, a crackle, a flash of white so bright it swallowed everything. I felt the force slam through me like fire and ice at the same time. My chest tightened, and then nothing. Just silence. I don't recall falling, but later I was told I dropped like a rag doll, unconscious before I even hit the platform. My heart had stopped. My body lay lifeless while the others rushed in panic, calling for medics. But what I experienced was something they could never see. At first I was confused. I could still hear distant voices, but they echoed as if underwater. Then I realized I was no longer inside my body. I was above it, looking down. I could see my colleagues desperately performing CPR, their faces pale with fear. I saw my own body lying motionless, arms twisted awkwardly, eyes closed. It should have been terrifying, but strangely I felt calm. Around me, the world seemed to dissolve into a tunnel of soft radiance. It wasn't blinding like the electrical flash. It was warm, pulling me gently forward. My fear of death, something I never admitted I had, suddenly melted away. Instead, I felt an invitation, as if I were being drawn into a place of love, safety, and truth. And so I moved, leaving behind the noise, the storm, and the frantic cries. Ahead of me waited something I could not yet comprehend, but it felt alive. As I drifted deeper into that radiant tunnel, the sounds of the world behind me grew fainter, until they were nothing more than distant whispers. What replaced them was a profound silence, not empty, but alive, like the pause between heartbeats when you sense something sacred. The light ahead of me shimmered, expanding, as if it was breathing. I remember thinking, am I dead? Is this it? A strange mixture of fear and peace washed over me. I worried about my family, about leaving Anna and the kids behind. I thought of unfinished tasks, of promises I hadn't kept. Yet even as those thoughts pressed on me, the tunnel seemed to whisper back, "You are not alone." Then, something shifted. The light took form, but not in the way I expected. I had grown up seeing paintings of Jesus in churches, long hair, robe, soft expression, but what stood before me was different. He was both familiar and beyond all description. His presence radiated power, yet also an overwhelming gentleness. His eyes were unlike anything I've ever seen, like oceans holding both eternity and intimacy. They looked at me as if they had always known me, even in my darkest secrets. I couldn't move, yet I didn't need to. His presence wrapped around me like a blanket, and then he spoke. Not with sound as we know it, but directly into my being. "Daniel," he said, my name vibrating inside me like music I'd always known. "You are safe." The moment those words touched me, I broke. I wept like a child, though I had no body here. All my pride, my mistakes, my hidden fears, they all poured out in that instant. I expected judgment, but instead I felt love, fierce and tender. And why me? I asked, though my voice was not a voice. Why now? Am I dead? He smiled. not with lips, but with light. Your time is not yet over, but I brought you here to see what lies ahead, so that you may return and bear witness. My mind spun. Witness? Witness to what? He reached out his hand, though it was not flesh but radiant fire that did not burn. When his hand touched what I perceived as mine, I felt a transfer, like knowledge, like vision, like truth flooding into me. Images opened before me. At first they were unclear. Flashes of cities in darkness, power grids collapsing, people huddled in cold rooms without light. I saw chaos on streets, governments struggling to respond, families separated by desperation. It was terrifying, yet I could not look away. Lord, I whispered inside myself, why are you showing me this? His reply came like a calm river flowing through my soul. Because this is what will come. The world has depended too much on fragile systems, forgetting the source of true light. The crisis you see is not only of energy, but of spirit. Yet through this, I am still working. Tears of awe filled me. I knew this was only the beginning of what he wanted me to see. The visions intensified. It was as if Jesus had opened a window into the future, and I was being carried through it like a silent witness. I saw massive grids, the kind I had worked on all my life, sparking and failing. Towers fell, one after another, not from storms or lightning, but from neglect, corruption, and greed. I watched as nations struggled to keep the lights on, but the demand kept rising, and the systems were too old, too fragile. Then the images shifted. I saw oil fields running dry, pipelines collapsing, leaders arguing while their people sat in darkness. Whole cities turned into islands of cold and silence, hospitals without power, children crying in rooms lit only by candles. A weight crushed my heart as I realized the scale. This wasn't one nation, it was global. I turned to Jesus, trembling. Is this really going to happen? His gaze never wavered. Daniel, humanity has built towers of energy, but forgotten the foundation of light. They trust wires and machines more than the one who gave them breath. When the systems fail, they will face the truth. No technology can replace the need for faith, unity, and love. Another scene opened before me. I saw a great hall filled with leaders, men and women in suits, debating solutions. Their words were loud, but their hearts were empty. They argued over profits and control, while outside the people suffered. And then, in the shadows, I saw others, ordinary people, sharing what little they had, lighting candles together, praying, and surviving not by power, but by kindness. Jesus' voice entered me again, steady and tender. The crisis will reveal the difference between those who cling to greed and those who live in love. It will test families, nations, and faith itself. But it will also awaken hearts. In the darkest nights, many will finally seek me. The vision shifted once more. This time I saw something even more haunting. A map of the world spread before me, glowing with lines of electricity like veins of light. One by one, those lines dimmed. Some regions went completely dark. Others flickered, struggling to stay alive. And then I saw a wave, an invisible wave, that spread across continents. It wasn't just an energy collapse. It was a spiritual shaking. Fear, panic, and anger spread like fire. I wanted to turn away, but his hand remained on me, steadying me. Do not fear what you see, Daniel. Fear does not come from me. I am showing you this so that you may warn them. Tell them, the systems of man are temporary, but my light is eternal. In me, there is no blackout. Those words burned into me. I realized then that this was not only about the grids and power plants I had worked on, it was about something much deeper. The world's obsession with control and consumption had blinded it to the truth that we are sustained by God's love, not by electricity. Tears streamed through me as I whispered, "What must I do, Lord?" He looked at me with eyes full of eternity. First, listen. There is more I must show you. When he said, "There is more I must show you," the visions deepened again, but this time they carried a symbolic weight, almost like parables written in light. I saw a massive candle standing in the middle of a darkened city. Around it, millions of people gathered, desperate for its flame, but instead of sharing, they fought over it, clawing and tearing at each other. The flame wavered, threatening to go out. Then one child stepped forward with a small match, lit it from the candle, and began passing the light to others. Soon, thousands of tiny flames spread across the city, and the great candle was no longer the only source. The message was clear. The crisis would expose selfishness, but it would also awaken the power of sharing, of multiplying light instead of hoarding it. Then I saw rivers, great shining rivers of water flowing through deserts. People rushed to drink, but many carried broken cups, unable to hold what they received. Jesus spoke. This is how many live. They run to resources, to systems, to solutions, but their hearts are cracked with greed, pride, and fear. Unless they are healed, nothing they gather will remain. My heart ached at the truth of it. I thought of my own life, how often I worried about money, about stability, instead of trusting Him. I whispered, Lord, what about my family? How will they survive if this darkness comes? His eyes met mine, deep and steady. Do you not know that I love them more than you ever could? If they walk with me, they will never be abandoned. Teach them faith, Daniel. Teach them to trust not in grids or governments, but in the Father's hand. The vision shifted one final time. I saw a mountain, and at the top burned a fire brighter than the sun. People from every nation were climbing toward it, some stumbling, some carrying others. Below, many remained in the valleys, building machines of iron, erecting towers of metal, insisting they could create their own light. But their towers crumbled, and their machines rusted. Only those who climbed toward the fire at the mountain's peak found true radiance, one that no storm could extinguish. Jesus' voice wrapped around me like a promise. Tell them that this fire is my love. It cannot be bought, stolen, or controlled. It is given freely to all who come. Even in the days of darkness, those who carry my flame will become beacons to others. At that moment, something inside me broke open. Not with despair, but with a strange courage. I realized that my purpose was not only as a technician of wires and cables, but as a witness of this eternal light. I turned toward Him, trembling. Why me, Lord? I'm just a worker, just an ordinary man. He smiled again, that smile of pure light. It is through the ordinary that I reveal the extraordinary. Return, Daniel. Speak. Share what you have seen. And just as he said those words, I felt a pull, an urgent tug back toward the place I had come from. The pull became stronger, but before I was swept away, Jesus' light surrounded me one last time. His presence was so close I felt as though His very heartbeat echoed within me. He spoke again, and every word carved itself into my soul like fire that heals instead of burns. Daniel, He said, tell them this. I am the light of the world. When the systems of man collapse, my light will not fail. Fear will cover nations, but those who place their trust in me will become anchors of peace. Tell them not to hoard, but to share, not to despair, but to pray, not to curse the darkness, but to carry my flame into it. His words broke me. I felt so unworthy, so small. Lord, I whispered, I don't know if I'm strong enough. People won't believe me. I'm not a preacher. I'm just a man who works with wires. His eyes softened, and that is why I chose you. The world does not need another voice of pride. It needs a witness of truth. You saw the grids, the failures, the chaos because you know them. But now you also know the source. Speak from your heart. Those with ears to hear will listen. I wanted to stay in His presence forever. Every fiber of me cried out against leaving. Yet at the same time, I knew His command was not a suggestion. It was my mission. Then He placed what felt like light itself into my chest. It burned and comforted at the same time, like carrying both fire and water within me. This, He said, is my peace. When you return, you will face doubt, questions, even fear. But my peace will remind you, you are never alone. With those words, the light around Him grew brighter and brighter until I couldn't see His form anymore. The tunnel returned, pulling me backward with a force I couldn't resist. My soul longed to stay, but the pull was too strong. Then, impact. I gasped as air flooded back into my lungs. Pain seared through my chest, and I heard voices shouting. My eyes blinked open against blinding hospital lights. A mask pressed against my face, machines beeped frantically, and doctors crowded over me. He's back! We've got him! One of them shouted. Confusion swallowed me. My body felt heavy, broken, bruised. But behind the chaos, behind the noise, I still felt that warmth in my chest, the gift He had placed there. Tears filled my eyes. not from the pain, but from the overwhelming reality of what I had just experienced. The nurses thought I was crying from shock, but it wasn't shock. It was awe. I heard one doctor mutter, "We lost him for nearly 6 minutes. I can't believe he's back." 6 minutes. In this world, it was 6 minutes. But where I had gone, it felt eternal. As I lay there, machines humming, my heart beating again, one thought consumed me. I must tell them. I must share what I've seen. The days after my return were not easy. My body was weak, scarred from burns and bruises, and my mind struggled to process what had happened. Doctors called it a near-death experience, the brain's reaction to trauma. Some of them avoided eye contact when I tried to explain, politely nodding as if I were hallucinating. But I knew what I had seen. No medical term could erase the fire Jesus had placed in my chest. When my wife, Anna, walked into the hospital room for the first time, I broke down. I held her hand and whispered through tears, "I saw him. I saw Jesus." She wept too, though part of her didn't fully understand. My children visited, their eyes wide with both fear and relief. I looked at them differently now, not just as my kids, but as souls entrusted to me by God. Once I was discharged and back home, everything felt different. The world seemed louder, yet also emptier. I couldn't pass a light switch without remembering his words. The systems of man are temporary, but my light is eternal. Every time I heard news about energy shortages or rising prices, my heart trembled, not with fear, but with urgency. I had been shown what is coming, and I couldn't stay silent. I started to pray daily, something I hadn't done in years. My prayers were no longer formal or distant. They were conversations, sometimes filled with tears, sometimes with silence, but always with honesty. I also began to share my story with anyone who would listen. Some mocked me, others dismissed me, but a few, just a few, leaned in with tears in their eyes, as if their souls recognized the truth in mine. I am not a preacher, nor do I claim to be a prophet. I am just Daniel, a technician who died and was brought back with a message. And if you're watching this, I believe it's not by chance. You need to hear it. The world will face dark times. Yes, in the systems, the energy, the grids. But even darker is the emptiness in human hearts. That is where the true blackout begins. Yet Jesus showed me that even in that darkness, his flame will spread through those who love, who pray, who share instead of hoard. So I say to you now, do not be afraid. Fear is the shadow that blinds us. Instead, prepare, not only with supplies or plans, but with faith. Prepare your heart. Teach your children to pray. Love your neighbors. Share light in whatever form you can, whether it's a candle, a meal, or a word of hope. I came back because he told me to bear witness. And my witness is this: Jesus is real. His love is stronger than death, stronger than fear, stronger than the darkness ahead. If you take anything from my story, let it be this: seek him now while there is time. When the lights of this world go out, his light will still shine. And in that light, you will never be alone.